Welcome to another video.
Yes, welcome to the video. You unlock this door with an 8-track tape. Beyond it lies a new dimension in sound. A dimension of vintage audio equipment, where a tape-creating amplifier neither creates tapes nor amplifies a thing. There's a binding post ahead. Your crossover is tuned to the tape deck zone.
Tape deck sound? Really?
Yeah, I know, a little cheesy, but it was Twilight Zone Day about a week ago. Anyway, welcome to a video. Today we're looking at the Pioneer CA-100 tape creating amplifier. That's right, it's called a tape creating amplifier, and there's no place to put a tape, so it really doesn't create tapes. And it doesn't amplify. There's no place to hook up a speaker. It deals in line level inputs only. So calling this a tape creating amplifier is like calling this igloo cooler a milkshake making freezer. I don't know. Why would Pioneer call it this? Well, it's pretty easy to look at it and say what it doesn't do. So what does it do?
What would you say you do here?
Well, let's just jump right in and look at the features. Well, front and center on this thing are the fader controls, including an automatic crossfader. What's a crossfade, you might ask? Well, most radio stations or party DJs don't wait for one song to fade out completely before starting the next, so as one's fading out, the other crosses its level as it fades in, I guess because dead air is considered unprofessional. So this device allows you to fade between two sources while making your own mixtapes. Let's demonstrate here. I'll just start up a couple of YouTube audio sources. So there, it's easy to crossfade manually by manipulating these sliders. You can also press the source you want to hear. This switch right here controls the depth of the fade. In other words, how quiet one song gets before the other one starts fading in. So what's the verdict on this fader? Is it useful? Well, today this would all be handled via software much easier, but even back then, if I had this device, I probably wouldn't have used it. Here's why. First, it breaks music search. That needs a silent gap between tracks. Second, for a home system, if I'm assembling a mixtape from a bunch of tracks on a CD, I'd have to have two CD players live to do this, or use an intermediate tape, which would degrade the sound quality. So it wouldn't be worth the trouble unless it was a very specific event like a party or a narration to a video or something where it was in the background. You didn't care that much about sound quality. And finally, as a switcher between audio sources, having to hit the fade and wait for what seems like an eternity, or either, use these manual sliders if you're running two sources through this thing for the equalizer, it would really become a pain because they all play together by default. To the left of the fader is the microphone mixer. You can hook up two microphones or electric guitars or other instruments and control the level mixed in with everything else. There's two additional enhancements. There's a pan pot knob, which you know is not a Disney character's toilet. It determines how far the signal is balanced, left or right. See, I'm way over here now, and now I'm way over here. Below the pan pot is an echo knob, which adds echo effect, and according to this insulting part of the manual, it's guaranteed to make you sound better than you actually sound. Unfortunately, on this unit, the echo was broken, so it had no effect. And here comes a song. Not sure what song it is, but it's coming up next. So I popped the top on this thing to see if I could see what was wrong with the echo, and found all sorts of interesting weirdness on the inside, like this angled circuit board with these wires. So not real easy to get down to the circuit or get behind those knobs. And the front also looks very unusual with all the different style switches and holes for other boards, I guess. In the end, I felt like the microphone mixing capability was a little bit more useful than the fader, because by the 90s, a lot of consumer home cassette decks had lost their microphone jacks. And, if you wanted to record, a family gathering or something, this would be a good way to bring it back into a high quality deck rather than relying on maybe a lower end portable recorder. And a mono jack lets you, it doesn't require you to have two microphones or only use one and have a dead channel. And now we get to the final feature. The big feature on this thing is on the right is the equalizer. And an equalizer, of course, allows you to boost or reduce certain frequencies, low on the left, high on the right. And this can be applied to any of or all of the incoming sources. Let's do a demo.
Testing, 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 testing. Welcome back to another video.
Well, before we wrap all this up, let's take a break and talk about what makes this all possible. That is the tape monitor feature. Most people understand the concept of switching between multiple audio inputs on a receiver, such as a radio, CD, tape, turntable, auxiliary input, whatever. And to make this work, each component needs to have a wire connected to the receiver in order to send it an output signal. And it's also easy to understand that since a tape deck plays and records, it needs to have an extra set of wires. It's not only sending a signal to the receiver, but also receiving what it needs to record back from the receiver. Whether that is a tape deck, reel-to-reel, or VCR, anything that records needs a signal to record. So at a minimum, to hook up a tape deck, a receiver needs to be able to route whatever signal you select back to the cassette deck for recording, in addition to going out to the speakers for listening. This is true whether the receiver has a tape monitor feature or not. When we talk about tape monitoring, the receiver gives control of the output to the tape deck independently of the state of the other inputs. The actual stated purpose of tape monitoring with a 3-head deck allows you to switch between the signal going to the tape deck and the signal being recorded on the tape. However, the fact that everything routes through this set of inputs all the time is a little hack that can be used to add a sound processor such as an equalizer. And when you do that, the tape deck then becomes connected to the equalizer, and the equalizer controls when the tape deck is injected into the signal. Unfortunately, the tape monitor has disappeared from most modern receivers, and consumers are used to cheaper stereos where the tape deck's treated like any other inputs, and as a result, you could not add an equalizer to a modern receiver as easily. So what was Pioneer thinking with this product? Clearly, if you look at the 1983 catalog, it was grouped and shares DNA with closely the CA-100 and the SG-90, one being a little bit more equalizer and the other being a little bit more microphone. This is kind of a case of jack of all trades, master of none, though. And I never saw it advertised because it really doesn't fit a category in a sales brochure of equalizer or mixer or whatever. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this tour of the tape creating amplifier that doesn't actually create tapes. If you actually ever use this thing or have some experience with it, please leave a comment, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time for another awesome video.